Hello and welcome. I am Matthew the Hybrid, the designer and developer. Thank you so much for clicking this video. If you are new, I've got the videos that I've already done in this series. What problem is GraphQL trying to solve? In order for us to answer that, let's just look at the history of data fetching and how we used to do things. Let's say we've got a database here, okay, with tables. This table is for users. This is another table, and this is another table. Okay. Let's say we are creating an accounting system. Okay. So let's say this one, it's users. Okay. There's username, user ID, and whatever. Okay. And then here we've got quotations. My apologies for my writing. Okay. Quotation made by this user for this client and the amount. And then here we've got invoices. Okay. Okay, same thing like quotation. This quotation has been made by this user for this client, and here is the amount. And also maybe the pending, the states. Is it already paid? Is it fully paid? Is half paid? And all those things. And then we've got the application here. Okay, we've got the application. And then let's say we've got the UI here. Okay, obviously we feed information to the application and we receive information to the application, but the application doesn't keep the information. Okay, so what the application does also, it communicates with the API. Okay, communicates with the API, but not necessarily directly with the API. The API will expose endpoints. Okay, let's put our endpoints there. Okay, for instance, let's say this endpoint, it's users. Okay, here when this application hits this endpoint, it will get a list of users. When it hits this endpoint's quotation, it will get a list of quotation. When it hits this endpoint invoices, it will get a list of invoices. Okay, and the API, it's responsible for making the queries. Okay, what if then okay, let me just briefly tell you about the nature of this data. Okay, the nature of this data. Okay, um the database, in order for the database to be efficient, okay, what we are running away from is redundancy. Okay, meaning that having multiple records. Okay, the first approach in which we can use when we saving information from this database. Okay, remember this is a some sort of an SQL database. Okay, so meaning that in order for us to save information in this database, we can have a user ID here. Let's say user ID 1. Okay, and the name. Okay, the name, let's say it's MT, that's the name, and the surname, it's SJ. Okay, we can have this information here. Whenever this user creates the quotation, okay, we can be lazy and make sure that we put these records the same as they are. Okay, we put the quotation ID here, the quotation amount here, and also we repeat this information, the surname, the ID of the user who was making this record, and everything that is involved there. As you can see, we've got a duplication. Why could we do that? Maybe because we want to be clever. We want to create an endpoint here where if we hit this endpoint, okay, we can just pull all of this information without having to get it from here. Okay, as you can see, I can pull a certain quotation which was done by this user. I can get also the user ID from the same table, and also I can get the username and the user surname. As you can see, makes my life easier, but this is redundant and also it's confusing. So in a SQL database, okay, in a structured database like this one, there's something called normalization. Normalization is when it's a technique that has been used to make sure that there is no duplication. Instead of taking this name and surname, we only take the primary key from this table. meaning that this table will be the quotation table plus the primary key from users, which when it lands into the quotation, it's going to be a foreign key. I can explain that later, okay? So meaning that this is the information for the quotation, it ends here. Now we just need to put 01 or number 1 for users, just to say that this record has been placed by this ID. What if we want to know the name of the user in this query, for instance? Okay. Now we will need to take this ID and make another query to the users and get the user detail. As you can see, once we start querying, okay, once we start querying for multiple tables, okay, for multiple tables, we are also expanding our queries, okay. It means that we have to select information from quotation, we have to select information from users, okay. Usually in SQL you inner join the table, okay. You select from here and inner join this one, okay, and then you will get the information that you want. The information that you will get is in this fashion, okay. All the code information plus the user information, code information and the username and the user details, as if it's one table. As you can see, once we start to query from different tables, okay, things are starting to be a little bit difficult in a way, okay. Imagine if we are querying from 3 different tables, okay. I hope you get that. Let's go back again. We've got the user interface asking information from the app, okay, and then the app make use of the API, and the API exposes endpoints. What if we want, as you can see, this endpoint is for users, this one is for quotation, and this one is for invoices. It gives you all that information. What if we want to query like information from multiple tables? We need to add another endpoint, which was this one, and this endpoint will query like multiple tables and it will bring this information, okay. Now the other problem, okay, if you only on users, okay, on users on this endpoint, which gives you everything like a list of all users, okay, if you only want one users, you just have to select it and filter it yourself, or create another endpoint that will only give you one user, as you can see, okay. Now let's introduce GraphQL and try to understand the problem that we want to solve, okay. What if then, instead of getting all the users here, okay, I can only get one user as I want? One might feel like it's simple. You will create another endpoint. No. What if I don't create another endpoint? I just get what I want whenever I want to. Then Tabo will start to be like, wow, is that possible? It's possible with GraphQL Turbo. Let me show you how. Okay, now we're going to introduce GraphQL here. With GraphQL, number 1, you only have one endpoint. Okay, one endpoint, which is, let's say, whatever / GraphQL. Okay, this guy here, application, can I draw this in such a way that it makes sense? Okay, let me just write a box. This is the endpoint. So this guy here will talk to this endpoint and it will get everything, and I mean everything it needs, using one endpoint. That's point number 1 to GraphQL instead of multiple endpoints. Also, this GraphQL, okay, you can just pick, as I have made before. It's like a developer is pushing a shopping cart. Okay, I hope this looks like a shopping cart. A developer is pushing a shopping cart. He is only picking the information that he will need, okay, to use on the UI. Okay, after he's done, he will send the information to the UI to do whatever. Okay, How many endpoints am I going to hit? You are still hitting one endpoint. Okay, maybe you want information about the user, you want information about balances. These are separate endpoints, so it feels like GraphQL doesn't really makes a difference. Okay, what if maybe I want to do something like this? I want to query multiple tables. With GraphQL, the same principle apply. The developer need to take a shopping cart and pick what he wants to pick. This might come from users, it might come from code, it might come from invoices. The information will be bundled by GraphQL and will come as one item, as one thing, meaning that the stress of making multiple queries is gone. That's point number 2 to the GraphQL. So, meaning that instead of this endpoint getting all the users, you can just get the user that you want. Okay, let me just give you an idea on how are you going to do that, maybe in the front end. Okay, you just write a query that you want. Okay, this is not the actual syntax, but it's something like it. Okay, and then let me just say undo. Okay, and then you mention I want from users. Okay, this is more like a JSON object. Okay, then you mention I want a username and I want an ID, and that's it. This query will give you exactly what you want. Okay, that's how it happens. As you can see now, it's like GraphQL is helping you to pick what you want. Okay, it can come from whenever. GraphQL will be responsible for that. You just tell it what you want in a true sense of the word and it will bring it to you. So the problem that GraphQL is trying to solve, number one, let's say multiple endpoints, you are only dealing with one point, okay, a source of truth, okay, or entrance, okay. And then point number 2, instead of getting a lot of information that you don't really need, meaning that if you want to get a list of users and also a quotation, and also meaning that you will have to make complex queries. Here you don't make complex queries. GraphQL will handle that for you. Okay, so instead of getting a list of all users, you can just pick the fields that you want. Very simple. GraphQL will handle the rest. Okay, sometimes when you want only one field, okay, it will mean you have to create an endpoint that will give you one field, okay, which is this is under fetching, because maybe at some point you might quickly want a lot of fields. Okay, switching from one field to many or to none, it's very easy with GraphQL. So GraphQL feels like not only it's some sort of a doorway to your data. Okay, not only it's a doorway to your data, it feels like GraphQL, GQL, it feels like it is your data. It feels like that. Okay, when you are using it, it feels like it is your data. It's like you are actually inside your database picking what you want to pick. So I hope you get the idea of what problem is GraphQL trying to solve. I am Matthew, the hybrid, the designer and developer. If you feel like this video is adding value in banning the concept, so that when you're being asked in an interview about GraphQL, at least you can be able to answer those questions. If you follow a YouTube tutorial that codes only, you might know the syntax, but you might not be able to explain what GraphQL is trying to solve. I'm Matthew Msingati, the hybrid, the designer and developer. Thank you so much for clicking this video and also for supporting my channel. Otherwise, for me, see you on the next one.